I started channeling by writing. And so it's kind of continued that way. And last night I woke up in the middle of the night and it started and it just kept on going. So it's the longest writing that we've ever had. And I asked Gadon who it was, and he wouldn't tell me. But I think it's someone new. Gadon is our doorkeeper that keeps the door. This is Wednesday night channeling number 172. And the title is Acceleration. And I looked up what Webster had to say about acceleration. Part of it says the time rate of change of velocity, quickness, rapidity. Are you hearing all right? Starts out, the universe is in a state of acceleration. You may be more concerned with your expression of the universe called your galaxy, or could we say that part of your galaxy you are becoming more familiar with. To bring it closer to your physical awareness, let us say, for now, your system. The system in which your physical existence resides is the sun that you see, and the 12 bodies that you call planets that this sun is involved with. At closer that this sun is involved with at closer range in your thinking. The planet that you physically reside, that you call Earth, has been said to be the third planet from your sun. That gives you warmth and many different rays that helps to sustain your physical self and everything on the planet. Your planet you call Earth, and the sun you can see with your physical eyes, are living entities, just as you are living entities. All so-called heavenly bodies are living entities, even though some appear to contain no life. It has just not been activated to the outer crust as yet. When this is a real change in the conversation, and I wondered about it, but it fits in. When will man awaken to the truth? The full ramification of this truth, that money is just a symbol of God's abundance. Life's abundance is everywhere present, and just because the life force from the higher realms of unlimited abundance has not been brought forth through the bridges or doors to the lower realms in enough sufficiency as ideas, inspirations, intuition, through the channel, the mind, in the most active bridge or door, thought, does not mean that the abundance of life force is not there. When you call on the force of life, you call intuition with enough realized thought. All things are possible. Let's read that again. When you call on the force of life, you call intuition with enough realized thought. All things are possible. When you know the truth of your inner power and use the tools that have been mentioned and can believe it possible, it is possible. The words the word the word intuition begins with the word in, meaning within you, within all life, above and beyond the outer crust called physical. The outer life of the word, I'm reading this badly tonight. The outer part of the word tuition in this instance means to look, to be aware, observe. In other words, to look within. This could be the subject for another time. I read that so badly. He was separating intuition in two parts. First the word in, and then tuition. When we think of tuition, we think of money to go to school, don't we? But it means other things too. To observe, to look, so forth. On your lower dimensions, you have discovered that things, including your physical bodies, contain molecules and other expressions that go to make up atoms. These are expressions and reflections to your level of life force. Life is another word for God, for without life there would be no God, as you understand him. Without life, without life, we would not be, and so have no perception of God. This God life force is accelerating at the point of consciousness where you think of your existence in your galaxy, your system. Your free will gives you the choice to raise your consciousness through greater understanding, life, and the universal laws of life, not just intellectual knowledge, but the ability to live the truth of your understanding. This is the only way your consciousness is increased and held in place to then go higher. I thought that was a good way of putting that. If your increase in higher consciousness keeps you with the acceleration of life in this so-called golden age, the age of Aquarius, you have the opportunity to experience one of the most glorious events in the universe. This acceleration will continue. You may go with the whole ramification of it, or like an elevator, you may get off the upward spiral and maintain the growth and acceleration you have accomplished. Through the grace of God, free will, you may step back on the elevator, the upward spiral of acceleration, after you have assimilated the growth gained and continue to go with the flow of acceleration. One of the experiences of stepping out of the upward flow is that many become complacent and allow the old habit patterns to pull them downward. No matter how slow or fast this downward movement, you are going the way that the full truth of God is not. You cannot coast, stand still, or straddle the fence. You continue to move, as all life is continually moving, Godward are the way of mammon. You know, I've heard this word mammon for a long time, and I get curious, and I wondered what Webster had to say about it. So I looked it up in my 1971 year dictionary. And here's what he said. Material wealth or possessions, especially having a debasing influence. He didn't say it was just material wealth or possessions, but having a debasing influence. In other words, trapping you. For a while, the distortions of illusion on the lower realms will continue to accelerate also. Being illusions from the misunderstanding of the human mind that has forgotten the reality of eternal truth, they do not continue, for they lack the eternal substance of life eternal, and will at some point of consciousness turn back on its illusionary self and be dissipated. And be dissipated to extinction of its own negative energy. You may now see this happening in small ways. At some point, the negative illusions of the whole planet will be purged of the misbelief of this unreality. Some are doing this to some degree in themselves. Continue to cleanse yourself of these impostors of beliefs, letting the divine light of truth shine through you. That was a long writing, wasn't it?
Good one.
Now then, Stephen, would you turn the air down just a little bit? I mean, up, so it's not so cold. Good evening, my dear ones. This is Don, coming to you from these realms of love and light. This is your doorkeeper from the realms of love and light to your realms. It is necessary to have a doorkeeper, to have a channel of light that goes all the way from the highest point down to your level, so that there will be no interference. And I am not the only one who is involved with this. There are several who maintain the vibrations of divine love and light through this open channel. We do have a guest tonight that has been with you before, but did not give you a name, and he is still reluctant to give you a name. I do not. Let us see. I think he gave you a name of Joe, did he not? Yeah. Yes, this is the one. And he has a great, great understanding of the universe. He is a very high spiritual being, a giant in the universe. And he has come to us tonight to bring the message. I apologize for Donald's hesitation in the reading, because we have kept him busy all day and part of the night and doing different things. But I will now turn this over to your friend that you are acquainted with and have labeled Joe. Good evening, my dear ones. It is indeed a pleasure to be with you in this circle of light. You know not how much pleasure it gives us to be with you, to come and share with you the understanding that we have, the understanding that God has given to us. Most of us have come through the experiences that you have come through, and we do understand. The ones who are chosen to speak in groups such as this, and there are many groups all over the world, small groups as yours, who are channeling, as you call it, the understanding of the divine truth to your plane. And my dear ones, let me make it clear that it is not easy for us to translate through your language the real truth of life, because we have to use your terminology and Donald's terminology also, but we have to use the duality concepts that are interwoven in your language. So we do the best that we can, and want you to know that it is not always exact according to the words, because we have to use the words that you understand. There are so many things that we could communicate to you if we did not have to use the voice box and could just transfer the thoughts to you. Then our meeting would last about 3 minutes, because we could transfer you in a few seconds, or let us say 3 minutes, what it would take 3 hours to say in your language, and the meaning would be so much clearer, because it would not have to come through this duality language that you have. There will come a day, and not too far in your future, and when I say this, you know, we do not deal in time on these dimensions. And when we talk about time, I think it is written in your book called the Bible, in those days, a day will seem as 10,000 years, or something like this. And with us, this is true. Time on our dimensions is accelerated much, much more than the time on your dimension. And I have to use the word time because this communicates to you what we are talking about. A better way of saying it is a point of consciousness. And so in this point of consciousness that you call Wednesday, we are meeting and communicating with you. This acceleration has begun and will continue to accelerate. Now, let me explain this, that it does not just mean speeding up. Acceleration is an acceleration of the acceleration of the acceleration. So things are changing very rapidly, and you have made more progress technologically in your past 100 years in all of your known history. And your known history is a very, very small part of the full history of your planet. Many of you here have gone through many civilizations, as you think of them, that are very, very high. And a few have accomplished great power of psychic abilities, as you would think of them, or intuition, if you want to use that word, and have used it in the incorrect way and have wiped out whole civilization and all records with it. This has happened many times in the history of your planet since it has been peopled, as you would say. the reason for this talk tonight about acceleration is to alert you to the emergency, you might say, need, and I may be using this word incorrectly, for you to get with it. I have been listening to some of your youngsters' slang words, and I will inject some of this in now and then, just for my fun as well as yours. But it is time now, as you would think, to stop dallying around and get with the act of raising your consciousness above and beyond this physical plane and understanding the real truth. And as the writing said, not just understanding the truth intellectually, but living the truth. This is the only way that you really raise your consciousness, is to live the truth. You may understand through reading books and coming to class and even listening to these messages a lot of things intellectually, but until you take it into your daily life, until you start living the life of divine love and putting it into practice in your every thought, word, and deed, then you are not living the real truth. Now, there are different stages in this growth, and of course, if you put it into practice in your every thought, word, and deed, you would not need this plane any longer. But as you move forward in your consciousness, I have watched some who have attended classes here for the past 20-some-odd years, and some of them have come to class and gained a lot of understanding intellectually, and then they drop out of class and move out of state or go about something else, and soon they have lost most of what they gained in class. So it is very, very important, if you spend your time and your energies to come to class and to do your grow work at home, it is very important to maintain it, to maintain what you have learned, to not just let us think what your master teacher has said about this. I cannot get it directly from Donald's mind, but it was something like, be not sayers of the word, but doers of the word. And by the way, there are many who know Donald from these dimensions for eons of time, and he has been labeled Donald the Doer. And it was not in relation to what I was saying, but he is always doing something. And down through the ages, he has been a student and a teacher, and he has gone astray quite a few times, but he has learned every time he has gone astray, because you cannot spend an incarnation on this plane without learning something. Even if you go in the opposite direction, you will eventually be pulled upward through the divine power of God's love, because you and God are one, and you are one with all life, and you cannot separate yourself from this oneness of all life that is named itself God. So eventually, even though God has given you the freedom to take all the time that you want to come back home to Him, you will be pulled up just because of the nature of your being. you can go so far, and then some of your groups call it hitting the bottom, and you have nowhere else to go but up. So as we think of this acceleration in your universe, and it is in the whole of the universe that the acceleration is going on, but there is especially in your part of the galaxy a great interest because your planet is going through a special initiation, you might call it, and then will be lifted up to a self-illuminating sun or star, whichever word you want to use, and instead of a dark reflecting planet as it is now. This will happen in the next 2,000 years. It is possible that it may not happen. Some have said to you that it will definitely happen, but it is according to the free will of many, many things, not just the people of your planet, because those who do not go the Godward way will be eliminated in a few hundred years, because they will eliminate themselves. The vibrations will be so high on your planet that they cannot stand the acceleration, and so they will have to incarnate on another planet or another dimension and go about their growth where they are vibrating at. No one is ever lost, my dear ones. Remember this. No one is ever lost. Some go slower and some go faster, but it is because we are all individuals, individual expressions of the one life, and we're different. And this makes a wonderful, beautiful existence and an interesting existence. When you can look from the higher dimensions that we view life from, we do not see good and evil, or the duality concept, time and space. We see the truth of life, and we are not concerned because there are many things going on your planet at this time that seem to be evil to you. And I can see that some do not like to hear this, but we see the acceleration of both those who are moving forward in their soul's growth and raising their consciousness, and the acceleration of those who are going the other direction. And this is why when you turn on your news, you see that in your city, that every day at least one or two people has been murdered, and many, many are involved with drugs and other things that take them against the grain of life. It is not evil. It is a learning process. And as I said, some of you do not want to hear this, but nevertheless, it is truth. And I will tell you this, whether you want to hear it or not, that all of you at some time have gone through the experience of everyone else, that everyone else has had on this planet. So you cannot judge by outer appearances. When you judge another, you judge yourself, because we are all one. Just as this thumb on this finger cannot say to these, just as this thumb on this hand cannot say to these fingers, I don't like you, I'm going off and leave you. That's ridiculous. And it's the same thing with you saying anything to anyone else. a rapist, a murderer, or anyone, you do not belong to the life that I belong to. This is not true. There is only one life. And on your lower dimensions that you have chosen to drop down to, it was not a fall. You have chosen to have these experiences. All of these experiences work together for good. Because in true reality, my dear ones, there is no death. Life is eternal. And the meaning of eternity is no beginning and no end. And with your conditioning and programming of time and space, this seems impossible, but nevertheless it is truth. All will make it into the bosom of God and know His divine love whenever they choose to, because God has given them the freedom to take as long as they want, because there is no ending to life. And so life is an ever-expanding, bursting into more of itself, is continually moving, just like energy. Energy does not stand still, and life is energy, and energy is life. And everything that you see, even the chair that you sit upon, is filled with molecules and atoms. There's another thing besides molecules that I could not get through from Donald's thoughts. Does anyone volunteer this?
Nucleus?
Say it another time.
Nucleus?
Yes. Molecules, nuclear, and those influences that go to make up atoms.
Protons?
Yes. Many things. And in the last 100 years or so, you have discovered these things, and you have discovered that there is more space between these atoms, and there is solidity, even in the stainless steel chair that you might sit upon. So you see, you cannot judge by appearances. When you know the truth of life, with a capital T, the eternal truth of life, then you see truly, you see clearly, and you're seeing with the inner eye, not the dual eye, the two eyes. You have two eyes on this physical plane because you are seeing duality. And until you open that inner eye and use it, of course you need your two eyes to see where you're going on the physical plane and not bruise your body. But when you look at life with the inner eye also, you see it completely different. Life is a beautiful, wondrous, glorious thing, no matter whether you're looking down the dirtiest alley or the biggest slums of any large city. When you look at it with the inner eye, you see only beauty. You see only God actively moving, and His work is being done, no matter what it appears to be on the outer surface. This, for some of you, is a little much, but it is truth. And when you learn to raise your consciousness to the point when you can see this and know it to be true, realize it, make it real in your consciousness, then you are free from these lower planes of illusion. You are free to see clearly and to see truly, and you know the truth, and the truth has set you free. Life on your plane for the next few years, or who knows how long, it is difficult for us to think in terms of time. Will sometimes be upsetting, but it will not, your planet will continue to exist. It will change greatly. Your systems of living will change greatly. As Donald has said for many years, there will come a time when there will be no jobs or work for you to go to, because it is already happening that the robots and the computers and many other things that have not yet come into view on your plane are taking over all of the, what would you call it, menial work, whatever the word is. And so what are you going to do with yourself when you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock and be at work at 8 o'clock and come home at 5? This is an interesting question, is it not? And it is a thing that some find when they retire from their work. Some adjust to it very well and maybe get another job, or they find a hobby that's interesting. Others do not adjust, and they quickly graduate from this plane because they have nothing to live for. They have very little to live for because they have been programmed to be a robot, you might say, getting up at 6 and going and doing the work of the company and coming home at 5 and paying the mortgage and all of these things that go to make up your life on this plane as you have known it. And this acceleration is going to change that, and it will be sooner than some of you think. This acceleration is speeding up much more than just 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour. That is not the way it works. It continues to accelerate the acceleration. And so many will find themselves in a completely different world. And those who cannot keep up with the increase in vibratory rate will be displeased greatly and will not like the world they find themselves in. But you can change, my dear ones, no matter how long your physical body has been on this plane in this incarnation. You can change your consciousness. You can change your thinking patterns that will bring you up into the level of the acceleration if you so decide. But if you resist it, and you resist the things that are happening, you resist the change of the negative, and say this is a terrible world, a terrible place to live in, it's only terrible because you do not understand. It is a growing process for those who inhabit this planet. Some of you are in the 1st grade, some in the 6th grade, and some of you are in college, you might say. This is just an example. In your consciousness is what I'm speaking of. And so those who are murdering, killing other people, and raping and robbing, you might say they're in kindergarten, because they have not learned the truth of life, or they are on a downward spiral, and they need these experiences. Now this is like a slap in the face to many people on this planet if they were to hear this, because they believe in evil. They believe in a devil. And I tell you, there's only one life in all of life, and it is called God. Now, what appears to be evil on your plane has been brought about through mankind, as you call it. God has given you the freedom to do with your life as you will, and this includes everyone, and he does not judge anyone. This is the biggest mistake that mankind has made, and it brings about a great deal of guilt and self-condemnation for the so-called mistakes. They are going through a process of learning, and it is something that is needed for both sides. It is something that is needed for those who are on the negative side, but those who are standing on the side and trying to grow spiritually and raise their consciousness and looking at these who do these awful things as they think of them and judging them. Your master teacher said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." Judge not, lest ye be judged. Let me say another thing to you about this, and this is a very heavy class for some of you, that those who kill and rob and rape are just as much you as the greatest saint in the world. You are a part of their life, just as this thumb is fed by the same bloodstream as these 4 fingers. And you are fed by the same life force that feeds everything in the whole universe, inanimate or animate, entities, heavenly bodies that do not seem to have life. They are all fed by the same life force. And it is a process of what you think of as evolution, and it's called evolution. And man, and I use this word loosely because I should say gods, because you are gods. Even those who murder and rape are gods just as much as you are. And they are going through this process of learning. And you are they, and they are you. You cannot separate yourself from anyone or anything in the whole of life. Some of the molecules and protons and other things that you have named go to make up the atoms that go to make up the bodies of this physical body, or this microphone, or the chairs that you sit upon. They are working in different ways, are they not? And they are revolving around each other, and some are going in one direction and some are going in another. And it is the same with what you think of as mankind, humans. Some are going in the direction of the downward spiral, and some are going in the upward spiral, and some are trying to ride the fence and straddle the fence, and they find that they cannot, because you are either going upward or you're going downward. And this again is speaking in your language, and these are dual concepts. This is the only way that I can communicate with you, in your words and in your language. But another way of saying it is some are going against the grain of life and some are going with the grain of life. It is much more difficult to swim upstream than it is to swim downstream, is it not? And so when you try to swim upstream, you struggle and strain at it. And it is much better to let go and let God and go with the flow of life. Go with the acceleration of life, because you are life, and life does not stand still. God's love for his creations is so great that the universe is continually expanding and bursting into more of itself, because it cannot contain the love that God has, and so it has to increase, and it will continue to increase throughout eternity that has no end. You are a beautiful circle of light, my dear ones, and whether you understand this or not, or whether you agree with it or not, does not matter. You are where you are in your consciousness, in your state of growth, and if you do not understand it or agree with it, this is all right, because what is truth, and what is not. And there is no division. It is just illusion. The thing that we think of as untrue is man's manifestation of his misunderstanding of life, his misunderstanding of the real truth of life, the real truth of life that God is, period. And another word for God is life, and put a capital L with it. Life is, period. It's not good or evil. It's not this or that or something else. It just is. And when you can see this with your inner intuition, as you think of it, with your inner understanding of that God being that dwells within you, when you can look through God's eyes, that is the inner core of your being, then you see truth. But most on your plane have their attention fastened on the outer world and take no time to go within, to get acquainted with that inner God being that they truly are, that they do not understand. And so they go on their merry way without knowing the truth, until that time comes, as you think of it as time, until that point of consciousness comes when they decide that they want something better, something different. They'd rather stop swimming upstream and let go and let God manifest through them. I hear Donald's thoughts about the tape, and I'm sure that Stephen is keeping track of this, so he need not be concerned. Let us stop for this time and see if you want to rebuttal what has been said, or ask questions or make comments about it. We do not answer personal questions, as a reader, you might call, does, but we do welcome questions of spiritual nature, and it doesn't have to be just of the nature of this particular class. So let us shift gears, you might say, and allow you to join in with this dissertation. I'm learning to use your language much better.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was having a discussion with my father about the story of the prodigal son of the Bible.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that I have a good understanding about the sin of the omission and the sin of commission. I think that so much that we do here on the physical talks about the sin of commission, but I don't think there's very much about the sin of omission. Could you shed some light on that?
Well, In the first place, let's think of your language and how your language works. To begin with, do you know the meaning of sin? Do you know where this word originated from? Some of you do, because I think Donald has mentioned it.
Missing the mark.
Missing the mark is right. In the olden days, when the hunters were practicing with their bow and arrow, they would put a bullseye on a tree and stand afar off from it, but they could not see how well they did. So they had one man standing off to the side, and he would holler, "Chin," and that meant you missed the mark. And this developed into the word sin. And through your many centuries of priests and those in charge of the churches have begun to talk fear more than they teach love. And so the sin brings about fear because they can control you much more and much better and easier with fear than they can with talking about divine love, because most do not understand divine love, but they understand fear because they are continually involved with it for the most part. Now, the omission and commission. Omission means to not act when you could, or to just sit still and do nothing about your soul's growth. You really cannot change anyone else. And I think in your scriptures you are thinking of, it is talking about helping other people. And this is fine, to help someone else. But as far as helping them in their soul's growth, no one can do that but themselves. You can set an example for them. But those who try to straddle the fence, for example, I would call those the ones of omission. And those who kill and rape and rob, that would maybe be commission. This is the best way that I can think of in a simple terms to explain this to you. Does this make sense to your understanding?
Yes, a great deal. I'll have to
I'll go without. Is that really clearing it up?
Speak a little louder so it'll be on the tape.
Yes, that clears it up. I'll have to call him and
Go over it with him because that just puts it very clearly as to what the sin are. He called it the experience that'll make you conceive that sin is a very good word is really.
Yes. And your ministers of most of the Orthodox churches talk about sin much more than they do about divine love. And they keep the audience fearful. They teach fear instead of love. Whatever you concentrate on, you develop into. For life force follows thought. And the thoughts that you give someone, if you are a minister of a church, if they accept them, then that becomes their reality. And if it is involved and coached in fear, then you have given them more of a downward spiral. But if you teach them the real truth of life, of divine love, because love is the key to all things, and we're speaking of divine love. Divine love is the key to all things, and it will solve any problem. It will heal any illness. It will sustain you in anything and everything that you come in contact with. Enough of it. Not just a little of divine love, but enough divine love will give you whatever you need, because God is love, as John said in your book, the Bible. And so God created you out of himself, and so you are love. And your nature, your real nature, is divine love. It is not fear. This is a conditioning process that you have been conditioned to fear. And this is the downward spiral. This keeps you from your heavenly consciousness. And it is the only thing that keeps you from moving forward in your soul's growth.
From what you said, and we've all been murderers, just like everybody else. We've been all these things. Every one of us said.
Let us not be too specific with this, my dear ones, but you may have been involved with someone as this. The experience has been yours at some time or another. If you will stop to think of war, how many years in your lifetime has there been no war on your planet? That is correct. And your Bible says there will be wars and rumors of wars in the latter days. And my dear ones, these are what was termed as the latter days. The latter days of the old way, because of the acceleration is coming, and it brings about the new way. And in this acceleration, wars will cease to be, because the war within yourself, in everyone's individual self, will cease to be. You will have to come to terms with your inner self if you are to keep up with the acceleration of this new age. And many, many on your plane who are very orthodox have evil thoughts about this term new age, and they think of it as evil. And so to them it is. But as a man thinketh, so is he. But that is their stage of growth. That is their understanding, and we should not judge them for what they think. It does not harm you in any way because someone else thinks something, unless you accept the thoughts, unless you accept the suggestion. Are there other questions this evening or comments?
Question when you said Orthodox, it kicks in an old program about when I was younger going to church on children had to be quiet. I had to in the back of church. This Chelsea disrupt your piling when she talks and plays. And
Yes, she has not disrupted this channeling. It is a beautiful thing to have a child near you, my dear ones, because as your master teacher said, unless you become as a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, because the child lives in the moment. The child lives completely in the present moment, and that is its existence, and that is the truth of life. There is no time. The past is gone. Tomorrow never comes. When it does, it's today. And so when you think about raising your consciousness, observe the children. not those who have been abused and conditioned in a fearful way, but those who are just being themselves. They are being themselves, and if they are not mistreated and are just loved and taught disciplined, they should be disciplined, yes, but disciplined in love. Most parents discipline their children with fear. They discipline them with anger, and all that the child gets is the anger. They don't get the discipline. They just don't do what life on your planet for you can be heaven if you so choose. Because in true reality, my dear ones, you do not live on this planet. You do not live in the Phoenix area or any other area. You do not even live in your physical body. You live in your consciousness. And thoughts have a great deal to do with your consciousness. And the type of thoughts that you think go to make up the level of consciousness that you exist at. And that level can be a state of depression or a state of elation, a state of hell or a state of heaven, or some degree in between. And, my dear ones, it is your choosing, and you do create your own reality. It has nothing to do with anyone else or any condition around you. It has to do with how you think about it, how you react to it, how you handle it inside yourself. And when you look with the dual eyes and see evil, then you react to it in a so-called negative way. And this puts you in the same position of what you are observing. Whether you like the statement or not, it is truth. The Master said, "Judge not," and the last part is important, "lest ye be judged." And that means when you judge somebody else or something else, you are judging yourself. Because life is one, and all are one. Are there other questions this evening?
Yes, I have a question. You spoke earlier of dealing with all things with divine love, which brought me to a question about when one is dealing with a situation of imbalance with somebody else, is it better to get to the cause of the situation based on programs before one sends the love into it, or can it be dealt with just as easily by just sending love into it as it's been taught?
Let us start with the beginning of your statement and restate it again. When you're dealing with an imbalance in someone, you are speaking of someone else.
Or within yourself, within a conversation with someone else.
Oh, so you are dealing with someone else, and that is
there's a conversation
an incorrect.
Myself, let's say, and someone else.
Uh-huh.
And within that conversation, let's say a person is
you have a disagreement, in other words.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes it can get really out of balance, and to the point where
someone punches you in the nose. Yes.
Well, it hasn't gotten that ugly, but
well, sometimes it does it not? Yes. And you see, you have no right to judge what another's truth is. Everyone has their own truth, and everyone has a different truth. And it is not wise, my dear one, and I hope you take this in the right way, to argue religion or spirituality. And I'm referring to the word argue. Let everyone have their own truth. And you may state your truth, but do not push it. Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying, but that's not exactly where my question was leading. Let me try and word
But this is the basis for what you're asking. This is the foundation of how it starts. But go ahead. I'm sorry that I interrupted.
No, that's right. It still helps. You're right. But I guess the other part of it then is, I guess trying to deal with imbalance by just sending love into it, I guess is let's say my option within a situation between another person.
Dealing with imbalance is not dealing at all. This is the correct action. Is not, the Master said, resist not evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, imbalance, in your terms, would be termed as evil. Anything that is not going with the grain of life comes under the term of evil. So, when you start a conversation and you say, this is the way I believe, and someone else says, this is the way that I believe, and this leads to something else, and you try to prove your point, this leads to feelings of resentment, and you don't need to get to the cause. The cause is disagreeing or resisting someone else's truth. Do you understand?
Yeah. So then if I just, I just hold strong in just the positive within the situation, and that will cleanse it or wash away the negative.
Well, it comes back to another saying that the Master said, is there will come a time when you only need to say yea or nay. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It is not necessary to convert anyone to your way of thinking, because you cannot. You are all different entities. You see life in a different way. You can set an example for your children by living life in a loving, beautiful way. They follow your example, not your words. And it is the same thing with other people also. When you try to convince them of your religion or your way of thinking, it goes against the grain of life, because it goes against their grain, because God has given them the freedom to think as they will. And if we try to convert them into our way of thinking, even though it would give them a better life, it is really none of our business what they do, because God has given them the freedom, and we are putting ourselves above God when we do this. Now, this is not to insult you, because many, many on your plane do this, even in your what you call your metaphysical circles. Are we still friends?
Yeah,
Good.
no problem. Thank you.
Good.
I sent a daily word to a number of people, and 2 or 3 of them said it's against their religion. I never thought there was anything in that was against their religion, but one of the Well, I said to one of the women, they wrote to the Unity and said, "Don't send me anymore." And I wrote to her and I said, "You did exactly the right thing." And so she writes me now, and she wants to discuss religion with me, and I don't. She has her own religion, and it's very good for her, but there's nothing to discuss.
Yes. So, if you did not send her the daily word in the first place, you would not have anything to discuss, would you?
But there was nothing wrong in that.
Well,
She thought
what?
it was.
Now, listen, Annabelle. Think with me for a moment. And think about motivation. And think about your motives. When you send someone some literature that you believe in, you are wanting them to have a better life or to get the enjoyment that you got from it, are you not?
There's some things that they can accept and some things that they can't accept. And they should just
You
let
did
that
not
be.
answer my question.
I wasn't trying to change them.
Well, let us look at it honestly. You were doing what you thought
Would make them happy.
would make them happy,
And
But-
it didn't.
but it didn't.
Well, they
And
did
so-
the right thing.
Yes. So when you're doing something that you think that will make someone happy, you are trying to change them.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that.
I know. I know that you did it with the right motivation in your heart. But to be truly honest with you, you see, you were trying to change them and to help them to have the happiness and the joy that you got from it. And that was doing it in love and with love. But on the other side of the coin, the motivation,
It upset them.
the motivation was to change them.
No, I never dreamed of changing this girl because I knew she had a perfectly good sense of God, but I never thought that there was any difference there whatsoever. I didn't think that there would be anything that would be different from what I thought.
But you see, it upset you, did it not?
Not exactly, no.
And in the sound of your voice, it did. It
I
is,
told her she did the right thing, which I think she did it. It
Yeah.
bothered her.
uh-huh. But it bothered you, or you would not have spoken of it. And because you felt a little guilty about it, and because it upset her.
Well, I
see.
never dreamed it would upset her because I've listened to her talk. She's very spiritual. I never dreamed it would upset her.
Yeah.
I never dreamed there was anything different than what she thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have any idea of changing her whatsoever because I had experienced what she thought, and I knew that it was very good for her, and I never for a moment thought she was going to change from the way she thought.
Yes. My dear one, your motives are good because you want to share, and you do share a great deal, and it does help some individuals. The many tapes and things that you send out to others gives them inspiration and is not bad.
Though
See, there is no good or evil.
we need inspiration from other people. We need other people's ideas. Otherwise, we stay stagnant. We
Yeah.
need other people's ideas. We don't have to agree with them. And furthermore, if a person can't listen to other people's ideas, the whole world has their own ideas, and we ought to be able to listen to each other. We do on every other subject except religion. We listen, and we don't pay any attention to it if we don't like it. We choose what we want,
Yes.
and it's on the table. We share it. It's on the table. And with every other subject, we get as many different viewpoints as we can find, and then we pick out what we want. But when it comes to religion, we got it in our head, and it's just cemented in like it was dropped in cement and put a glass dome over it. And God help you if you say, if it's a little different from what anybody else says.
Yes, you're correct in some of this that you say, because many are stuck on this plane because of this and because of brainwashing, you might say. And they will stay stuck until they are ready to get unstuck.
I don't know whether it's the Hopis or the Navajos, but one of those people think that that you shouldn't change anything, that you shouldn't have anything better than the other person in your thought, and you shouldn't have any different ideas. Well, gracious sakes, if you think that, we never would get ahead. We never would get ahead at all. You've got to have something different to start you on your own thinking. You've got to run up against ideas that are different than yours.
Have you considered becoming a minister?
No.
You are ministering, whether you think of it or not. You are ministering your ideas and your concepts, just but the things that you said. And when you send other people material, you are ministering unto them. And some of them accept it, and some of them do not. And you should accept when they do not accept it.
I do.
Yeah.
But they are not expected to accept everything. But we should be able to listen to every single person.
So, Annabelle, if they're not expected to, we need not have the conversation about it, do we?
Well, I think that you need to brush up against people who have different ideas than you. If we always are brushing up against people that have our ideas, we aren't getting anywhere.
Yes, but we need not resist them.
No.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You can just let them drop. Drop. But all people should be able to do that. We do it on every other subject except religion, and that we're all crazy.
Well, I'm not so sure about this, because scientists have different ideas about this and that, and
yes,
everyone has their own ideas about life. See,
but they don't get excited about it. They don't get all upset and bothered about it. There's nothing to get bothered about. You either accept it or drop it. It's either true to you or it's untrue, and you throw it out.
It comes to mind that a good businessman never discusses religion or politics.
That's right.
With his potential customer. And so we are involved with ourselves and no one else, really. The God within you is the only one that you are truly involved with. You are one with all life, and all life is one with you. But in your soul's growth, in your upward spiral, it is the God within you that you are dealing with.
But you weigh many ideas that come your way, and you accept some of them, and you reject others.
Yes, but
that's building blocks. You need to have a choice of various building blocks, and not have them all the same.
This is truth, but you need not be concerned about it either.
No.
That's right. Some things irritate us, and some things we're happy with.
Well, this girl, I enjoyed her ideas. I've always enjoyed her ideas. I never dreamed that there was.
But you see, my dear Annabelle, when you continue to speak of it, be honest with yourself. When you continue to go over it and over it and over it, it is bothering you.
No.
Be honest with yourself.
I am be honest with myself. I've spent many hours with this girl, and I have never known her to give anything that was least objectionable to me.
Would you consider our conversation an argument? about religion or something. You see, it is turned into that. And my concepts that I try to give to you, you give them back to me in a different way. And maybe I have made a mistake by not even saying anything about what you have discussed.
Frankly, I like this woman's ideas. All that I've ever come in contact with, I like them.
Yeah. But it's difficult for you to be quiet about it, isn't it?
Well, I can't understand it because I just can't understand it because
I know.
she never did anything that
Because it upsets you. See? Be honest. It's very difficult for us to be honest with ourselves.
I guess it must be because I didn't expect it. I didn't try to change her because
You see, here, listen, Annabelle, instead of talking so much. When you expect anything from anyone, that is going against the grain of life.
I didn't expect it.
We do not have the right to expect anything from anyone, even our mates, even our families, those who we are close to, because everyone is involved only with the God within them. This is difficult to accept. This is difficult to understand because you are coming together and bumping up against each other, as you say, and maybe making building blocks. But it comes down to how you react to it, how you handle it within yourself. And that is between you and God within you, you see. That is between the truth of the inner God and the truth of the illusions of the world. And when they come in conflict with each other, or seem to come in conflict with each other, we are dealing with the illusions. We are dealing with resistance and things that go against the grain of life.
You think I should write to her and tell her to teach me religion?
I think that you should release her to God and not think any more about it.
Well, that's what I did.
No, you didn't. You wouldn't be bringing up the subject.
Well, as far as she was concerned, I didn't answer the letter.
Yeah, but you're still talking about it.
It doesn't bother me.
Oh, okay.
No, it doesn't.
I will accept it if you say so. Now, let us get on with our class tonight called Acceleration. You can get hung up on something and let it keep you there and keep you going with the accelerated events of life that are happening very rapidly now. Or you can release it and go on. And this makes the difference in your soul's growth, particularly at this time. 200 years ago on your planet, things were very slow. And you had your horse and buggy, and most people eked a meager living out of the ground by plowing it or hunted animals or whatever. And now you have all of these appliances. Now you have all of these things. And so it is a different world. The world has come to an end many times in the last few hundred years.
They've dropped their witchcraft. They've dropped their ideas of witchcraft. They had that at that time. It wasn't so pleasant. I mean, when they had all these people accusing them of witchcraft, when they were just ordinary people with nothing wrong with them at all.
Yes, many things have changed. Are there any other questions tonight?
Yes, Joe, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a lot of difficulty with acceptance at the moment. Can you give me any words of encouragement about the spiritual equality of male and female?
Of male and female. My dear one, you are both male and female, and you have played the role of male and female to have the experience. Everyone needs all the experiences that everyone else has because we are one life. And equality is involved with thinking that one individual has more than the other. This, my dear one, is a concept. And you're stuck with your concept if you will accept the truth in a blunt way. And this is the only way that I know to say it to you. And if you can release it and go about your incarnation with the kind of body that you have, and just love, and look with the inner eye, look through the eyes of God within you, and see love and beauty and joy everywhere, instead of seeing diversity. You see, it is the diversity of duality that makes us unhappy. Did this help at all?
Well, I think you put me in my place. Thank you.
I didn't mean it to do it in that way, but it is the truth. Do you not think so?
I'm not going to argue.
Yes, I understand. You are stuck with your concepts, and it makes you unhappy. If something makes you unhappy, why not give it up? Yes. It is resistance to the way things are. The way things are on your plane in your consciousness is different than anyone else's consciousness. And it is in your country and the world now especially, this concept about it's being a man's world. See? And women are trying to get their equal rights. And this is all right, but when it makes you unhappy, then you are harming yourself.
But all families aren't like that. Some families, the women are just as important as the men, and the men are just as important as the women.
Yes, everything is different to everyone. And when you really come to that realization that we are all different in our thinking, we're all in a different place of consciousness, in a different place of soul's growth. And we have to accept that and give the other individual the freedom to be as they want to be. When you can do that, then you're going with the grain of life. When you resist what others are doing or the way the world is going, you see, you're going against the grain of life and harming yourself, making it difficult for yourself. If something is bothering you, release it. The law of release is a very important law. Release it to God. He knows what to do with it. And you go about living your life in a peaceful, joyful way. Unless you enjoy the game. This is another matter. Some enjoy the game, and they don't want to give up the game. And it is just a game. Are there other questions this evening? I feel that we have gone over time in this class tonight, and it has been a wonderful pleasure for me to be with you and have this intercourse, we might say, to give our views and to be open to receive and to be open to give. I will leave you now with the blessings of our Heavenly Father, and remember all those who are here that are not in the physical. Send them God's love, your teachers and guides, your friends that you may not remember in this incarnation, many who have come to sit in on this class, who are maybe in the same place or a similar place as yours is in your understanding. There are throngs of them. You would be amazed at how many who have come to hear these words and to sit in on this spiritual intercourse. God bless each one of you, and good evening.